It was meant to be a fake wedding to impress his ex, but the billionaire fell for the love act. The check sat between them. $250,000. Enough to save her dying mother. Enough to save her failing business. All she had to do was marry a billionaire she'd never met before. Sign a contract promising not to fall in love. And walk away in 6 months like nothing happened. Simple, right? Except nothing about John Edwards was simple. And Whitney Johnson was about to break every rule she'd promised to follow. Welcome back to CJ Stories, where we bring you emotional and heart-touching stories that speak to the soul. If you're just joining us for the first time, you're welcome to this wonderful big family. We're so glad to have you here. Please make sure to watch till the end, and if today's story moves you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, give us a like, and share this video with your family and loved ones. Now, let's dive into today's story. The check sat between them on the mahogany desk. 6 figures. More money than Whitney Johnson had seen in one place in her entire 34 years. All she had to do was marry a stranger. Let me be clear, John Edwards said, his gray eyes steady across the desk. This isn't real. It's a business arrangement. 6 months. We get married, attend a few events together, and when the time is right, we have an amicable divorce. You walk away with enough to save your business and cover your mother's medical bills. I get what I need. Whitney's hands were steady in her lap, but her heart hammered against her ribs. This was insane. This was desperate. This was exactly what she needed. What do you get? She asked. May 18, 2024. Charleston, South Carolina. The city bloomed outside the floor-to-ceiling windows of Edwards Global Ventures, azaleas and jasmine scenting the air, the Ashley River glittering in the late afternoon sun. Whitney had walked into this building an hour ago as a struggling event planner on the verge of losing everything. She might walk out as a bride-to-be. To a billionaire she'd never met before today. John leaned back in his chair. At 37, he looked like old money wrapped in new ambition. Dark hair touched with silver at the temples, a jaw that could cut glass, shoulders that filled out his Tom Ford suit like it was designed specifically for his frame. Which it probably was. I get my ex-fiancée off my back, he said. And I prove to my father that I've moved on. Your ex? Victoria. His mouth tightened around the name. We were engaged 2 years ago. It ended badly. She's been persistent. And my father thinks I'm still hung up on her. There's a family wedding next month, my cousin's. Victoria will be there. If I show up engaged to someone else, someone I'm clearly head over heels for, it ends the speculation. It proves I've moved forward. Why me? Because you're perfect. He slid a folder across the desk. I had you investigated. I'm sorry, but I needed to be thorough. You're beautiful, intelligent, well-spoken. You run your own business, that matters to my family. You're not connected to my social circle, so there's less chance of anyone from my world knowing this isn't real. And, he paused. You need this enough to say yes. Whitney's jaw tightened. The investigation part should have angered her. It did anger her. But he wasn't wrong about the last part. She opened the folder. Her life, summarized in bullet points. Asterisk Whitney Marie Johnson, 34, owner of Magnolia Events. Revenue down 40% year-over-year. 3 major clients canceled, spring 2024. Mother, Diane Johnson, 62, stage 3 breast cancer, treatment ongoing. Medical debt, $147,000. Business debt, $63,000, asterisk. He'd done his homework. This is invasive, she said quietly. I know. I apologize. He didn't sound sorry, exactly. He sounded practical. But if we're going to do this, we both need to know exactly what we're getting into. Whitney looked up at him. Really looked. There was something behind those gray eyes, something more than cold calculation. Pain, maybe. The kind that came from having your heart handed back to you in pieces. She knew that look. She'd seen it in her own mirror often enough. Why not just hire an actress, she asked. Because actresses act. They perform. What I need is someone who can be genuine in public and professional in private. Someone who understands this is a transaction. His gaze held hers. Someone who won't catch feelings. The words landed between them like a challenge. Whitney thought of her mother, growing weaker every week. Of the medical bills stacked on her kitchen counter. Of the business she'd built from nothing, now circling the drain because 3 corporate clients had merged and canceled their contracts in the same quarter. She thought of pride, and what it was worth when everything else was crumbling. What exactly would this entail, she asked. John pulled out another document. A contract. Of course there was a contract. We'd get engaged within the week, he said. Immediate social media announcement. I'd introduce you to my family at Sunday dinner. We'd attend my cousin's wedding June 15th as an engaged couple. We'd need to appear convincing, affectionate in public. We'd maintain the engagement through the summer, attend various charity events and business functions together. In October, we'd have a small, private wedding ceremony, real marriage license, real vows, but just for show. Then, after the holidays, we'd quietly separate. Divorce finalized by March 2025. You'd receive the full payment upon signing the marriage license. He slid the check closer to her. $250,000. $250,000. Whitney's vision blurred slightly. That money would save everything. Her mother's treatment. Her business. Her life. What are the rules? She asked. No falling in love. He said it immediately, firmly. This is business. We're friendly, professional, but we maintain boundaries. Separate bedrooms, obviously. No physical intimacy beyond what's necessary for public appearances. Complete discretion, no one can know this isn't real. And when it ends cleanly. No drama, no complications. You've thought of everything. I've learned to. Something flickered across his face. Victoria taught me that relationships need clear terms. This one will have the clearest terms possible. Whitney looked down at the contract. 47 pages. She should take it to a lawyer. She should take at least a week to think about this. She should run out of this office and never look back. Instead, she thought of her mother's smile last Sunday, brave and brittle. Don't worry about me, baby. We'll figure it out, But they were running out of time to figure it out. I need to think about it, Whitney heard herself say. Of course. John stood, extending his hand. Take 48 hours. But Whitney, he waited until she stood as well, until she placed her hand in his. His palm was warm. Calloused, surprisingly, for a billionaire. His grip was firm but not aggressive. If you say yes, he continued, I need you all in. Convincing. My family is perceptive, especially my father. If they suspect this is fake, the whole thing falls apart. Can you do that? Can you make people believe you're falling for me? Whitney looked up at him. He was tall, she was 5'7", and he still had several inches on her. This close, she could see the fine lines around his eyes. Laugh lines, maybe, though he didn't seem like he laughed much anymore. She could smell his cologne, something subtle and expensive. She could also see the vulnerability he was trying to hide. This man was as desperate as she was, just in a different way. I'm an event planner, she said. I create beautiful moments that make people believe in magic, even when it's all carefully orchestrated logistics. If I agree to this, Mr. Edwards, people won't just believe I'm falling for you. She stepped back, releasing his hand. They'll believe you're falling for me, too. His eyes widened slightly. Just slightly. Then something that might have been a smile touched his mouth. John, he said. If you're going to be my fiancé, call me John. Whitney walked out of Edwards Global Ventures into the Charleston spring evening with the contract in her bag and her heart in her throat. The Battery stretched before her, couples strolling along the waterfront, live oak trees dripping with Spanish moss in the golden light. Her phone buzzed. Her best friend Rachel. How'd the consultation go? Rachel thought she was meeting a potential client. Which was technically true. Just not the kind of client either of them had imagined. Whitney looked back at the building. 47 floors of steel and glass. Somewhere up there, John Edwards was probably already moving to his next meeting, his next deal. She should say no. This was crazy. But crazy was sometimes just another word for the only option left. Her phone buzzed again. This time, her mother, at treatment. Feeling good today. Love you, baby, Whitney closed her eyes. Opened them. Made a decision that would change everything. She typed a text to the number John had given her, I'm in. When do we start, The response came 30 seconds later, tomorrow. I'll pick you up at 10. We're something that photographs well. We're going ring shopping, Whitney's hands started shaking then. Really shaking. She was going to fake marry a billionaire. God help her, she was actually going to do this. What she didn't know, what she couldn't know, standing there in the Charleston twilight with the scent of jasmine and the sound of church bells and the weight of her decision settling into her bones, was that John Edwards was standing at his office window 47 floors up, watching her walk away, thinking the exact same thing. Except his version ended differently. God help me. I'm going to have to pretend I don't find her absolutely captivating, I'm going to have to pretend this is just business. I'm going to have to lie. And John Edwards had never been a very good liar. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more emotional and heart-touching stories that speak to the soul, and share your thoughts in the comments to tell us which story you want to hear next. Now let us continue. 3 weeks later, Whitney Johnson was getting very good at lying. Tell me again how he proposed, the woman across from her gushed, diamonds glittering at her throat like a constellation. They were at the Charleston Yacht Club, late afternoon sun turning the harbor into liquid gold. June 8, 2024. Whitney had been fake engaged to John Edwards for exactly 2 weeks, and she'd already attended 4 events where she'd told 4 variations of their fabricated love story. She was getting better at making it sound real. It was at Waterfront Park, Whitney said, letting warmth creep into her voice. Right at sunset. He'd planned this whole elaborate picnic, but then he got so nervous he just dropped to one knee right there by the pineapple fountain. Forgot half of what he was going to say. She smiled, soft and private. It was perfect. The woman, Judith something hyphenated, wife of John's business partner, melted. That's so romantic. And the ring. Whitney's left hand felt heavy with the weight of the 3-carat diamond John had let her choose. Except, let her choose wasn't accurate. He'd watched her gravitate toward the simplest option in the case, a princess-cut solitaire, elegant and understated, and told the jeweler, that one. And I don't care what it costs. It cost more than her first car. Her first 3 cars, actually. He has excellent taste, Whitney said diplomatically. He has excellent taste in women, Judith corrected. I've known John for 5 years, and I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. Not even Victoria. Whitney's smile didn't falter, but something tightened in her chest. Victoria. The ex-fiancée. The ghost at every gathering. That's very kind, she said. Across the room, John was deep in conversation with 2 men in golf attire, but his gaze found hers anyway. It always did. Part of the act, she reminded herself. They'd practiced this, the lingering glances, the awareness of each other even in crowded rooms. He excused himself and crossed to her, moving with the easy confidence of a man who'd never questioned his place in any room he entered. Sorry to interrupt, Judith, he said smoothly, his hand settling at the small of Whitney's back. But I need to steal my fiancé for a moment. The touch was light. Professional. It still sent heat radiating up her spine. They'd established rules about touching, hand-holding in public. His arm around her waist at events. A kiss on the forehead or cheek when appropriate. Nothing more unless absolutely necessary for the performance. They were both very good at following the rules. Of course. Judith beamed. You two are adorable. Simply adorable. John guided Whitney toward the terrace, his hand never leaving her back until they were outside, alone with the sound of water lapping against the docks and seagulls crying overhead. Then he stepped away. Professional distance restored. You're a natural at this, he said, leaning against the railing. The wind off the harbor ruffled his dark hair. He'd loosened his tie, rolled up his sleeves. He looked younger like this, less controlled. Judith absolutely adores you. She's the 4th person to tell me how you look at me, Whitney said. You're doing a convincing job yourself. It's not difficult. He said it casually, then seemed to catch himself. You make it easy to sell the story. You're very good at this. An odd tension hung between them. Whitney turned toward the water, grateful for the breeze cooling her flushed cheeks. The past 2 weeks had been a whirlwind. Meeting his father, Marcus, a formidable man with steel-gray eyes just like John's, who'd studied Whitney like she was a balance sheet he was deciding whether to approve. Sunday dinners at the Edwards estate, a sprawling antebellum mansion in the historic district where she'd learned to navigate conversations about portfolios and charity boards and family legacies. John's world was so different from hers. Old money meeting new money meeting self-made fortune. A world where people summered as a verb and networking happened on golf courses and yachts. But she'd also seen glimpses of something else. The way John's jaw tightened when his father criticized his business decisions. The way he'd quietly donated double the requested amount at a children's hospital fundraiser. The way he'd asked about her mother every single day, genuine concern in his eyes. How's Diane doing? He asked now, as if reading her mind. Whitney's throat tightened. Good. The new treatment protocol is helping. She actually had enough energy to go to church last Sunday. That's wonderful. He paused. I meant what I said, if there are any additional costs, any experimental treatments that insurance won't cover. You've already done more than enough. Whitney cut him off gently. The money from our arrangement is covering everything. I can't ask for more. You're not asking. I'm offering. She looked at him then, really looked. In the golden hour light, he was almost unfairly handsome, the kind of face that belonged on magazine covers or movie screens. But it was the expression that caught her. Something open and unguarded. Something real. Why are you being so kind to me? The question escaped before she could stop it. This is supposed to be just business. John's expression shuddered slightly. Kindness doesn't cost me anything. And your mother's health isn't part of our arrangement, it's just human decency. Is that what this is? Human decency? What else would it be? Whitney didn't have an answer. Or rather, she had several answers, none of which she was allowed to voice. Like the fact that her heart had started doing complicated things whenever he smiled. Or that she'd caught herself thinking about him at odd moments, wondering what he was doing, whether he'd eaten lunch, if he was sleeping well. Or that when he touched her, even in those carefully orchestrated public moments, her entire nervous system lit up like Rainbow Row at Christmas. This was a job. A transaction. A temporary arrangement with a clear expiration date. She could not, would not, catch feelings. "We should get back," she said. "People will notice we're gone." "Let them notice." John's voice had dropped lower. "Let them think we snuck away for a private moment. It adds to the narrative." He was right. It did. But standing here alone with him, the Charleston harbor stretching before them and the scent of salt and roses in the air, felt dangerous. "John, Victoria is going to be at the wedding Saturday," he said abruptly. "My cousin's wedding. I wanted to warn you." There it was. The real reason for this whole charade. "I remember. June 15th. That's the big test, right? The whole reason you needed a fake fiancé." Something flickered in his eyes. "Right. The reason. What should I expect?" John was quiet for a moment, his gaze distant. "She's beautiful. Charming. She'll be polite to your face and say cutting things disguised as compliments. She'll try to get me alone, try to convince me we made a mistake." His jaw tightened. "She does this every time we're in the same room. My father thinks it's because I'm not over her. He thinks I'm holding on to something that's dead." "Are you?" Whitney asked softly. "Holding on?" He looked at her then, and the intensity in his gray eyes made her breath catch. "No," he said. "I was. For too long. But I'm not anymore." "What changed?" John opened his mouth. Closed it. Shook his head slightly. "We should go back inside." But he didn't move. Neither did she. The air between them felt charged, electric. Whitney's heart hammered against her ribs. This was the moment where one of them should laugh, should make a joke, should break the tension. Neither of them did. Whitney. Her name on his lips sounded different. Less professional. More, something. "Yes? Saturday. At the wedding. I might need to," he stopped. Started again. "To really sell this, I might need to kiss you. Would that be acceptable?" A kiss. They discussed this possibility in the contract. Brief, appropriate public displays of affection as needed. So why did her pulse spike like he'd suggested something far more intimate? "Of course," she said, proud of how steady her voice sounded. "Whatever's necessary for the performance." The performance. Right. His gaze dropped to her mouth for just a second. Just long enough for heat to pool in her stomach. "I'll try to give you warning. I won't just." "John, it's fine. I'm a professional. You're a professional. We both know what this is." "Do we?" The question hung between them like a third presence. Whitney's phone buzzed, shattering the moment. She grabbed it gratefully. "Rachel, dinner tomorrow? Feel like I haven't seen you in forever, I should." Whitney gestured vaguely toward the phone. "Yes. Of course." John straightened, slipping back into his polished businessman persona like a suit jacket. "Shall we?" He offered his arm. Whitney took it. They walked back inside together, the perfect picture of an engaged couple. But Whitney's mind was racing. She'd felt it. That moment on the terrace. The way the air had changed, the way he'd looked at her. It wasn't part of the act. Or if it was, they were both better actors than she'd thought. Later that night, Whitney sat in her small apartment in the Cannonboro-Elliottboro neighborhood, a far cry from John's penthouse downtown, and stared at the contract on her coffee table. No falling in love. Page 3, Section 2.1, Subsection C. She picked up her phone. Put it down. Picked it up again. Finally texted Rachel, "Can't do dinner tomorrow." Rain check? Because sitting across from her best friend, who could read her like a billboard, while pretending everything was fine. While pretending she wasn't developing feelings for a man she was contractually obligated not to fall for. That was a performance she wasn't ready to give. Her phone lit up. But it wasn't Rachel. It was John, "Thank you for today. You were perfect. See you Saturday. The wedding. Our big moment, She stared at the message. Typed and deleted 3 responses. Finally settled on, "See you Saturday." Professional. Appropriate. Safe. She did not type what she was thinking, which was that she'd been replaying their conversation on the terrace for the past 2 hours. That her hand still tingled where he'd touched her back. That when he'd looked at her mouth, she'd wanted. No. Whitney deleted the thought before it could fully form. This was a job. In 4 months, it would be over. She'd have her money, her mother's medical bills would be paid, her business would be saved, and John Edwards would move on to his next merger, his next acquisition, his next carefully calculated decision. She could not afford to forget that, even if her heart was starting to have other ideas. Saturday, June 15, 2024. The wedding was at a historic church on Meeting Street, all white columns and Southern Gothic architecture. Whitney stood in front of her bathroom mirror, adjusting the jade green dress John had sent over, vintage Dior, tailored perfectly to her curves. He'd included a note, *, this color will photograph beautifully. But more importantly, it matches your eyes when you laugh. J*. When had he noticed the color of her eyes when she laughed? The car service picked her up at 2. By 2:30, she was walking into the church on John's arm, very aware of the heads turning, the whispers starting. And then she saw her. Victoria Pemberton stood near the front pew in a rose-colored dress that probably cost more than Whitney's monthly rent, blonde and poised and looking at John like he was water and she'd been wandering the desert. "Showtime," John murmured against Whitney's ear. His hand tightened on her waist. And for the first time since this whole arrangement started, Whitney wondered if she was prepared for what came next. Because the way John was looking at her, protective, possessive, proud, didn't feel like acting anymore. And the way her heart responded definitely wasn't in the contract. Victoria's gaze locked on them. Her smile was sharp as glass. "John," she purred, gliding over. "And you must be the new fiancé. How delightful." Whitney felt John tense beside her. This was it. The real test. Whitney smiled, warm and genuine, and extended her hand. "Whitney Johnson. And you must be Victoria. John's told me so much about you." Victoria's eyes narrowed just slightly. "Has he? How interesting. He never mentioned you at all." "Well," Whitney said sweetly, "I suppose some things are worth keeping private. Until they're absolutely real." The emphasis on real landed exactly as intended. John's lips curved into a smile. His thumb traced a small circle on Whitney's waist, a gesture no one else could see, but one she felt everywhere. "Shall we find our seats?" he said smoothly. "Darling?" The endearment rolled off his tongue like he'd been saying it for years. Whitney let him guide her away, very aware of Victoria's stare burning into her back. "That went well," she whispered. "You were amazing," John whispered back. "She looked like she wanted to murder you. Is that a good thing? In this case?" "Absolutely." They slid into a pew. John's hand found hers, their fingers interlacing naturally. More natural than it should be. The ceremony began. Whitney tried to focus on the bride and groom, on the beautiful vows, on anything except the warmth of John's palm against hers. But then the minister said, "Love is a choice we make every day. A commitment that transcends circumstance. A promise to see and be seen, truly, by another soul." Whitney felt John's grip tighten. She glanced at him. He was staring straight ahead, jaw clenched, something vulnerable flickering across his face. Without thinking, she squeezed back. He looked down at their joined hands. Then at her. And the expression in his eyes made her forget how to breathe. This wasn't acting. Whatever this was, it wasn't acting anymore. The minister pronounced the couple married. Everyone applauded. And John Edwards, billionaire, her fake fiancé, the man she was absolutely not supposed to fall for, leaned down and kissed her. Not on the forehead. Not on the cheek. On the mouth. Soft and brief and tender and absolutely devastating. "Sorry," he whispered against her lips. Victoria was watching. I had to make it convincing. But his hand was shaking slightly where it cupped her face. And Whitney knew, she absolutely knew, that he was lying. Not about Victoria watching. About why he'd really kissed her. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more emotional and heart-touching stories that speak to the soul, and share your thoughts in the comments to tell us which story you want to hear next. Now let us continue. 2 months later, Whitney Johnson was in love with her fake fiancé. She knew the exact moment it happened. August 10, 2024. Magnolia Plantation, just outside Charleston. They'd gone for what John called a break from performing, a Saturday afternoon with no events, no audiences, no one to convince. Just them. They'd walked through the gardens as the late summer sun painted everything gold and amber. John had been telling her about his childhood, about the pressure of being Marcus Edwards' only son, about building his first company at 28 with something to prove. "I wanted him to see me," John had said quietly, stopping near a pond where turtles sunned themselves on logs. "Not as an extension of the family legacy. As myself. As someone who built something that mattered." Whitney had watched his profile, the strong jaw, the vulnerability in his eyes, and felt her heart crack open completely. "He sees you," she'd said. "Maybe not the way you want. But John, everyone sees you. You're kind of impossible to miss." He'd turned to her then, and the look on his face. That's when she knew. She was completely, irrevocably, catastrophically in love with him. Now, 3 weeks later, she was paying the price for breaking the cardinal rule. "You're being ridiculous," Rachel said, sitting across from Whitney at a cafe on King Street. September 2, 2024. Labor Day weekend. "Just tell him how you feel." "I can't." Whitney stirred her coffee for the 15th time. "Rachel, there's a contract. Literally a 47-page contract that says, no falling in love. I signed it. He signed it. This whole thing ends in October with a wedding that isn't real, and then we divorce and go our separate ways. Except you're in love with him." "Except I'm in love with him," Whitney admitted miserably. It had been getting harder to hide. The way her breath caught when he walked into a room. The way she'd started sleeping in one of his old Columbia t-shirts he'd left at her apartment after a strategy session. The way every touch, even the staged ones, felt like fire against her skin. And the worst part? She was almost certain he felt it too. The kisses had become more frequent, more lingering. His hands would find hers even when no one was watching. Last week, at his penthouse going over their schedule, she'd fallen asleep on his couch and woken up covered with his suit jacket, John sitting in a chair across the room, watching her with an expression that made her heart stop. "What did he say?" she'd asked groggily. "Nothing. You looked peaceful. I didn't want to wake you." But the way he'd said it, the softness in his voice, had sounded like I could watch you sleep for the rest of my life. "So tell him," Rachel pressed now. "Whitney, I've met John exactly twice, and even I can see the way he looks at you. That man is gone. Absolutely gone. It doesn't matter. In 6 weeks, this ends. He gets what he needed, Victoria off his back, his father satisfied, he's moved on. I get what I needed, Ma's medical bills paid, my business saved. We both walk away." Rachel's eyes softened at the mention of Diane. "How is your Ma doing?" "Good. Really good, actually. The treatment is working. She has energy again. She's talking about going back to her book club." Whitney's throat tightened. "John made that possible. The money from this arrangement, I can never repay what he's given me." "Maybe he doesn't want repayment. Maybe he wants you." Whitney shook her head. "He wants to prove something to his father and his ex. I'm a means to an end. A very well-compensated means to an end, but still." Her phone buzzed. "John, dinner tonight? My place. Need to discuss the wedding timeline, The wedding. Their fake wedding. October 20th, 2024. Just 6 weeks away." Whitney's stomach twisted. "I have to go," she told Rachel. "Whitney. I know what I'm doing. I'll be fine." But as she walked toward the waterfront where John's penthouse overlooked the harbor, Whitney knew she was lying. She was not fine. She was in love with a man she couldn't have, counting down to a wedding that would break her heart. John's penthouse was all floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist elegance. Whitney had been here dozens of times now, but it still took her breath away. The view of Charleston Harbor, the Ashley and Cooper rivers meeting in the distance, the city lights beginning to twinkle as dusk settled. John answered the door in jeans and a Henley, barefoot, hair slightly mussed. Casual John was even more dangerous than businessman John. "Hey," he said, and his smile was genuine, warm. "Come in. I ordered from Peninsula Grill. I remembered you loved their she crab soup." He remembered. Of course he remembered. He remembered everything about her. Whitney stepped inside, hyper-aware of how domestic this felt. How easy it would be to pretend this was real. That she was coming home to him, that he'd ordered her favorite food because he loved her, that this was their life and not an elaborate performance. "So," John said once they were settled at his dining table, the food spread between them. "October 20th. The wedding. I've arranged for a private ceremony at the Charleston Harbor Resort. Just immediate family, a few close friends. The judge who'll officiate is a family friend, very discreet." "Sounds perfect." Whitney forced brightness into her voice. "After the ceremony, there'll be a small reception. Dinner, dancing, the usual. And then..." He paused, something flickering across his face. "And then we'll be married. Legally. For real, even if it's not, even if it's temporary." "Right. Temporary." Silence stretched between them. John pushed food around his plate. "Whitney, I've been thinking." His phone rang. He glanced at it, frowned. "It's my father. I should..." "Of course. Take it." John stepped onto the balcony. Through the glass, Whitney could see his posture stiffen, his free hand raking through his hair. The conversation looked tense. When he came back inside 15 minutes later, his jaw was tight. "Everything okay?" Whitney asked. "My father wants to throw us an engagement party. Next Saturday. September 14th. Big event, all of Charleston society. He's already sent invitations." John's voice was flat. "He's thrilled about the wedding. Says you're the best thing that's happened to me. Says I finally look happy again. The words should have made Whitney smile. Instead, they felt like knives. That's good, right? That's what we wanted. Him believing we're real. Right. What we wanted. John sat down heavily. Victoria will be there. She RSVP'd yes. Of course she did. Whitney, John reached across the table, his hand covering hers. I need you to be prepared. She's been escalating. Calling me. Showing up at my office. She told me last week that she made a mistake, that she wants me back, that she's willing to do whatever it takes. Whitney's heart clenched. What did you tell her? That I'm engaged. That I'm happy. That she needs to move on. Did she believe you? John's thumb traced circles on her palm. The touch was absent, automatic. Like he didn't even realize he was doing it. I don't know. I don't care. But at this party, she's going to try something. I can feel it. So I need us to be... He met Whitney's eyes. I need us to be convincing. Undeniably, completely convincing. We've been convincing for 4 months, John. I think we can handle one more party. This is different. This is my father's house. Everyone who matters in my world will be there. And Victoria, he stopped. She knows how to get under my skin. How to make me doubt myself. I need you to be my anchor. Can you do that? Whitney looked at their joined hands. At the man sitting across from her, vulnerable and asking for help in the only way he knew how. Yes, she said softly. I can do that. What she didn't say, I'd do anything for you. I'd be anything for you. I love you so much it's destroying me, John's expression softened. Thank you. For all of this. For being. He seemed to struggle with words. For being exactly who you are. The moment stretched. His hand was still on hers. The air felt charged, electric. John. I should tell you something. He said it quickly, like he needed to get it out before he lost his nerve. That day at Magnolia Plantation. In August. When we walked through the gardens. Whitney's heart hammered. I remember. I almost told you then. He stopped. Shook his head. Never mind. It doesn't matter. What were you going to say? Nothing. It's not important. But the way he was looking at her, the longing in his eyes, the war happening behind his careful expression, said it was everything. Whitney pulled her hand back gently. I should go. It's getting late. Stay. The word came out rougher than intended. I mean, we should go over the guest list for the engagement party. Make sure you know who everyone is. It was an excuse. They both knew it. Whitney should leave. Should put distance between them. Should protect what was left of her heart. Instead, she said, okay. Let's go over the list. They spent the next 2 hours on his couch, laptop between them, John explaining the complex web of Charleston society. His leg pressed against hers. His arm draped casually along the back of the couch, his fingers occasionally brushing her shoulder. Every touch felt like a brand. By the time Whitney finally left at 11, her resolve was crumbling. In the elevator down, she pressed her forehead against the cool metal wall and tried to breathe. 6 more weeks. She could survive 6 more weeks. Then this would be over, and she could begin the long, painful process of forgetting John Edwards. Except she knew, with absolute certainty, that she would never forget him. Not in 6 weeks. Not in 6 years. Not ever. September 14, 2024. The engagement party. The Edwards estate was lit up like a fairy tale, hundreds of white lights strung through the live oak trees, a string quartet playing on the veranda, champagne flowing like water. 200 guests in designer gowns and tuxedos, all there to celebrate John and Whitney's impending nuptials. Whitney stood in front of the mirror in the estate's powder room, adjusting the midnight blue gown John had sent over. Vera Wang. Probably cost more than her car. The note had said, "You'll outshine every star in the sky. J*." She'd cried reading it. Now, she applied another coat of lipstick and tried to armor herself for what was coming. Rachel's words echoed, "Just tell him how you feel." But how could she? How could she risk destroying the careful balance they'd built? What if she told him she loved him and he looked at her with pity? With regret? What if it made these last weeks unbearable? The door opened. Whitney expected another guest. Instead, Victoria Pemberton walked in. She looked stunning in champagne silk, her blonde hair swept up, diamonds at her throat. Her smile was sharp. "Whitney. How lovely you look." "Victoria." Whitney kept her voice neutral. "Enjoying the party?" "Immensely." Victoria pulled out a lipstick, made a show of applying it. "I wanted to talk to you. Woman to woman." "About?" "About John." Victoria turned, leaning against the counter. "You seem sweet. Really. And I'm sure you think what you have with him is real. But sweetie, the condescension dripped like honey. You have to know this isn't going to last. Whitney's spine straightened. I don't know what you mean. Please. John and I were together for 3 years. Engaged for one of them. I know him better than anyone. And I know that he doesn't fall in love quickly. He's methodical. Careful. The fact that he's engaged to you after only 4 months. Victoria laughed softly. It's a rebound. You're a rebound. And when he realizes that, when the novelty wears off, he'll come back to me. He always does. If he always comes back to you, why did he end the engagement? Whitney kept her voice steady. Victoria's eyes flashed. I ended it. Because he was too focused on his company, too obsessed with proving himself to his father. But he's had 2 years to grow up now. To realize what matters. And what matters is legacy. Family. The right kind of partnership. She looked Whitney up and down. No offense, but you're not exactly from his world, are you? Event planner. Sweet. But John needs someone who understands his life. His responsibilities. Whitney's hands clenched at her sides. John makes his own decisions about what he needs. Does he? Or did his father pressure him to move on, and you were simply convenient? The words hit like a slap. Because wasn't that exactly what had happened? John had needed someone to prove he'd moved on. Whitney had needed money. Convenience wrapped in a contract. John and I love each other? Victoria's smile was pitying. Sweetie, I've been watching you two all summer. At the yacht club. At charity events. And you know what I see? I see you, desperately in love with him. And I see him, performing beautifully. But there's a difference between playing a part and actually feeling it. Whitney's chest tightened. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? Victoria moved closer, her voice dropping. Ask yourself this, has he ever told you he loves you? Actually said the words? Or does he just touch you in public and look at you like you're precious when people are watching? Whitney's silence was answer enough. Victoria's smile turned triumphant. That's what I thought. He's very good at this, isn't he? Making people believe what he wants them to believe. It's what makes him such a brilliant businessman. She moved toward the door, paused. I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm trying to save you from getting hurt. When this falls apart, and it will, don't say I didn't warn you. She left in a cloud of expensive perfume. Whitney gripped the counter, her reflection staring back at her. Perfectly styled. Perfectly dressed. Perfectly fake. Has he ever told you he loves you? No. He hadn't. Because he didn't. This was business. A transaction. She'd known that from the beginning. So why did Victoria's words feel like they were carving out her insides? Whitney took a shaky breath. Then another. She had a party to get through. A performance to give. She could fall apart later. John found her on the terrace 20 minutes later. The party swirled inside, laughter and music and the clink of crystal. Out here, it was quieter. Just the sound of the fountain and the distant harbor. There you are, he said, relief evident. I've been looking everywhere. Are you okay? Fine. Just needed some air. He moved beside her, close enough that his warmth radiated through the cool September evening. You're a terrible liar. What happened? Nothing. I'm fine. Whitney. He turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her shoulders. Talk to me. The concern in his eyes nearly broke her. Victoria cornered me, Whitney heard herself say. In the powder room. She said, she stopped. It doesn't matter what she said. John's jaw clenched. What did she say? That I'm a rebound. That you don't actually love me. That when this ends, you'll go back to her. Whitney met his gaze. She's right about some of it, isn't she? This does end. We do go our separate ways. That was always the plan. Something flickered in John's expression. Pain, maybe. Or regret. That was the plan, he said quietly. Was? He stepped closer. His hand slid from her shoulders to cup her face, thumbs brushing her cheekbones. The touch was achingly tender. Whitney, John, there you are. Marcus Edwards' voice boomed from the doorway. We need you for the toast. And bring your beautiful fiancée. Everyone's waiting. The moment shattered. John's hands dropped. He stepped back, the careful mask sliding into place. Of course. We're coming. He offered Whitney his arm. Ready? No. She wasn't ready. She needed to know what he'd been about to say. Needed to know if there was any chance. But Marcus was already heading back inside, and John was waiting, and the performance had to continue. Whitney took his arm. They walked into the glittering ballroom together. Marcus raised his glass, called for attention. The room quieted. A toast, he announced, to my son John and his lovely fiancée Whitney. May your love be as enduring as it is obvious. To John and Whitney. To John and Whitney, 200 voices echoed. Whitney smiled. Raised her glass. Played her part perfectly. and tried not to notice Victoria in the corner, watching them with a knowing smile. Or the way John's hand trembled slightly where it rested on her waist. Or the fact that in 6 weeks, this would all be over, and she would have to learn how to breathe without him. The party continued. They danced. They mingled. They convinced every single person in that room that they were madly in love. It was the best performance Whitney had ever given. It was also killing her. At midnight, when the last guests had finally left, John walked Whitney to her car. The estate was quiet now, just the two of them and the sound of crickets and the distant harbor. "Thank you," he said. "For tonight. For handling Victoria. For being perfect." "I'm not perfect, John. You are to me." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Whitney looked up at him. In the moonlight, he looked younger, more vulnerable. Like the man who'd told her about his childhood at Magnolia Plantation. Like the man who remembered her favorite soup and noticed the color of her eyes when she laughed. "What were you going to say?" she asked. "On the terrace. Before your father interrupted. What were you going to tell me?" John was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, that the plan changed. That somewhere between the fake engagement and now, everything changed. Whitney's phone rang, shrill and insistent. She almost didn't answer. Almost let it ring so she could hear the rest of what John was saying. But the ringtone was her mother's. At midnight. Ice flooded Whitney's veins. She grabbed the phone. "Ma, baby." Diane's voice was weak, strained. "I'm sorry to call so late. I'm at the hospital. Don't panic, but I need you to come. The pain, it came back. Worse than before. They're running tests, but I'm coming. Right now." "Which hospital?" "Musk." "But honey, finish your party first. I'm already on my way." Whitney was moving toward her car, hands shaking. "I'll be there in 15 minutes. She hung up. Turned to John. "I have to go. It's my mom. She's at the hospital." John's expression shifted immediately. "I'm coming with you." "You don't have to." "I'm coming." He was already pulling out his keys. "We'll take my car. It's faster." "John. Don't argue. Let's go." 20 minutes later, they were in the MUSC emergency room, still in their formal wear, completely out of place among the fluorescent lights and linoleum. A nurse directed them to Diane's room. Whitney's mother looked small in the hospital bed, her beautiful face drawn with pain but managing a smile when Whitney burst through the door. "Ma. I'm okay, baby. They gave me something for the pain. I'm okay." But she didn't look okay. She looked fragile. Scared. Whitney grabbed her mother's hand, fighting tears. John hung back, giving them space. But when Diane's eyes found him, she smiled. "John. You didn't have to come." "Of course I did, Diane." He moved closer, his voice gentle. "What are the doctors saying?" "They're running more tests. They think," Diane's voice cracked. "They think it might have spread. But they won't know for sure until tomorrow." Whitney's world tilted. Spread. The cancer had spread. All the treatment. All the money John had provided. All the hope. "Hey." John was suddenly there, his hand on Whitney's shoulder. Steady. Grounding. "We don't know anything yet. Let's wait for the tests. Diane, is there anything you need? Anything at all? Just having my baby here is enough." Diane squeezed Whitney's hand. "Both of you. You're good to her, John. I see it. The way you look at my daughter," she smiled tiredly. "That's real love. That's the kind of love that lasts." Whitney's throat closed. If only Diane knew. If only she knew this was all an act, all a carefully constructed lie, all. "I love her very much," John said quietly. Whitney's head snapped up. John was looking at Diane, but his words, the way he said them. "I can see that," Diane said. "You take care of each other, you hear me? That's what marriage is. Taking care of each other when things get hard." A nurse came in then, needing to run more tests. Visiting hours were over. They'd have to leave. Whitney kissed her mother's forehead. "I'll be back first thing tomorrow morning." "I know you will, baby. Now go home. Get some rest. Both of you." In the elevator down, Whitney finally let herself shake. The fear, the exhaustion, the emotional whiplash of the entire night, it all crashed over her at once. John pulled her against his chest without a word. Just held her while she tried not to fall apart. "She'll be okay," he murmured against her hair. "She's strong. She'll be okay. You don't know that." "No. But I believe it. And you should too." They stood like that until the elevator doors opened. In the parking garage, under the harsh fluorescent lights, John turned to her. "What I said in there. To your mother." His gray eyes were intense, serious. "Whitney, I meant it. I need you to know that I don't." Whitney stepped back. "Please don't say something you don't mean just because you feel sorry for me. I can't handle that right now. This isn't pity. This is. John, stop. Please. Tears were threatening again. It's been a really long night, and I just need to go home. Something that looked like pain crossed his face. But he nodded. Okay. Let me drive you. I can drive myself. Whitney. Please. I need to be alone right now. It was a lie. She didn't want to be alone. She wanted him to hold her again, to tell her everything would be okay, to say those 3 words he'd almost said. But she also knew that if he said them now, tonight, when she was this vulnerable, this broken, she would believe them. And believing would destroy her when this all ended in 6 weeks. So she got in her car and drove away, watching John standing in the parking garage in his tuxedo, looking lost and alone. When she got home, she found a text waiting, *I meant what I said. Every word. We need to talk. Really talk. Soon. J*. Whitney stared at her phone. Typed, *, there's nothing to talk about. The wedding is in 6 weeks. Then this ends. That was always the deal, *. Deleted it. Typed, *, I love you too. I've loved you for months. I'm terrified, *. Deleted it. Finally sent, *, get some rest. Long day tomorrow, *. Safe. Neutral. Non-committal. But as she lay in bed, still in her Vera Wang gown, staring at the ceiling, Whitney knew the truth. She couldn't do this anymore. She couldn't keep pretending this was fake when everything she felt was devastatingly real. Something had to give. And she was terrified it was going to be her heart. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more emotional and heart-touching stories that speak to the soul, and share your thoughts in the comments to tell us which story you want to hear next. Now let us continue. The cancer had spread. September 16, 2024. Whitney sat in the hospital conference room while Dr. Patel explained that Diane's breast cancer had metastasized to her liver. Stage 4. Treatment options narrowing. Prognosis uncertain. Her mother, her vibrant, strong, beautiful mother who'd raised her alone after her father died, who'd worked 2 jobs to put Whitney through college, who'd built a life of grace and dignity against every odd, was running out of time. We can try aggressive chemotherapy, Dr. Patel said gently. There's a clinical trial at Johns Hopkins that might be appropriate. But I want you to understand. How long? Whitney's voice sounded distant, not her own. Without treatment, maybe 6 months. With treatment. Dr. Patel's expression was compassionate. It's hard to say. A year. Maybe more. Every case is different. A year. 12 months. Not enough. Not nearly enough. Whitney nodded mechanically, asked the right questions, signed the forms for the clinical trial application. Moved through the motions like a robot. When she finally made it to Diane's room, her mother was sleeping. Whitney sank into the chair beside the bed and let herself break. Her phone buzzed. John, *, how is she? How are you? I can be there in 10 minutes, *. He'd been texting since yesterday. Calling. Whitney had responded to none of it. Because every time she thought about facing him, about seeing the concern in his eyes, she wanted to collapse into his arms and never let go. And she couldn't do that. This wasn't real. He wasn't hers. In 5 weeks, October 20th, they'd have their fake wedding, and shortly after, he'd file for divorce, and this would all be over. She couldn't lean on someone who was leaving. She turned off her phone. September 18th, 2024, Whitney hadn't been home in 2 days. She'd been living at the hospital, sleeping in the chair beside her mother's bed, eating vending machine food, existing in a haze of fear and exhaustion. Rachel showed up Wednesday afternoon with real food and clean clothes. Okay, her best friend said, setting down bags from Whitney's favorite restaurant. You need to eat. You need to shower. And you need to talk to John. I don't need to do anything except be here for my ma. Your ma is sleeping. And she'd kill you for neglecting yourself like this. Rachel sat down, her expression softening. Whit, honey. John has called me 6 times. He's worried sick. He wants to help. He can't help. Nobody can help. That's not true. The clinical trial costs $40,000 that insurance won't cover. Whitney's laugh was hollow. $40,000 I don't have. The money from the arrangement is already allocated, existing medical bills, business debt. There's nothing left. Rachel was quiet for a moment. Did you tell John? No. Why not? He'd. What? Give me more money? Rachel, I can't. I've already taken so much from him. This whole thing, Whitney's voice cracked. This whole fake relationship was supposed to be a business transaction. Clean. Simple. And now my mother is dying, and I'm in love with a man I can't have, and everything is falling apart. So tell him. Tell him you love him. And then what? He feels obligated to stay with me out of pity? Out of guilt because my mother is sick? Rachel, in 5 weeks we're supposed to get fake married and then divorce. That was the deal. I can't change the terms now just because I fell in love and my life is imploding. Maybe he fell in love too. Whitney shook her head. Even if he did, which I don't think he has, what kind of person would I be? Trapping him in a real relationship because my mother is dying? Using her illness to manipulate him into staying? That's not what you'd be doing, isn't it? Whitney stood, pacing the small room. God, Rachel. I'm such an idiot. I knew the rules. No falling in love. It was literally in the contract. And I broke the one rule that mattered. Her phone, now back on, buzzed again. John, *, please talk to me. I know you're going through hell. Let me help. Let me be there for you, *. Whitney stared at the message until it blurred. She wanted to let him help. Wanted to tell him everything. Wanted to believe that what they had was real enough to survive this. But she'd learned young that wanting something didn't make it true. I need to focus on my ma right now, Whitney said finally. Everything else, John, the wedding, all of it, can wait. Rachel looked at her sadly. You're going to lose him. You know that, right? If you keep pushing him away, you're going to lose him. I never had him to lose. But even as Whitney said it, she knew it was a lie. She'd had him. For a few perfect months, she'd had him. And she was about to throw it all away because she was too scared to believe in something real. September 22, 2024, Diane was being discharged. The clinical trial had accepted her, John had pulled strings, Whitney later learned, calling in favors from colleagues at Johns Hopkins, expediting the application process. But the $40,000 cost remained. Whitney sat in her apartment that evening, staring at her laptop. Her business account showed $32,000, money she'd carefully saved from the arrangement with John, meant to rebuild Magnolia Events. Not enough. Her personal account, $4,000. Still not enough. She could ask John. She knew she could. He'd give her the money without hesitation. Probably insist on paying for all of it. But Whitney couldn't. She couldn't take more from him. Couldn't know him more than she already did. She pulled up her business website instead. Stared at the company she'd built from nothing. The dream she'd poured her heart into. Then she started making calls. By midnight, she'd arranged to sell Magnolia Events. A larger event planning company had been trying to buy her out for 2 years. The offer was fair, $60,000 for her client list, brand name, and goodwill. It wasn't what the business was worth. Not really. But it was enough. Enough to pay for her mother's clinical trial with money left over for ongoing care. Whitney signed the digital contract at 1:47 a.m., September 23, and felt something inside her shatter. Her business. Her dream. Her independence. Gone. But her mother would live. Would have a fighting chance. That was what mattered. Her phone lit up. John, *, I know you're awake. I can see your apartment light from here. Please let me come up. Please let me in, *. Whitney looked out her window. Across the street, in the parking lot, John's Mercedes was parked. He'd been there for hours, she realized. Just sitting. Waiting. For her. Something in her chest cracked open. She texted back, come up. 3 minutes later, he was at her door. He looked wrecked, his hair disheveled, stubble shadowing his jaw, exhaustion etched into every line of his face. He was in jeans and an old sweater, more undone than she'd ever seen him. You look terrible, she said. You look worse. His gray eyes searched her face. Whitney, what's happening? Why won't you talk to me? I know Diane's prognosis is bad. I know you're scared. But shutting me out? I sold my business. John froze. What? Tonight? An hour ago. I sold Magnolia Events. Whitney heard her voice from far away, flat and emotionless. The clinical trial costs $40,000. I didn't have it. So I sold my company. Why didn't you tell me? I would have given me the money. I know. That's why I didn't tell you. John stared at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. You sold your dream rather than ask me for help? It wasn't my dream. It was a business. And my mother is my family. The choice was easy. Whitney. Don't. She held up a hand. Please don't tell me I should have come to you. Don't tell me you would have helped. I know you would have. That's not the point. Then what is the point? The point is that this, she gestured between them, isn't real. In 4 weeks, we're getting married in a ceremony that means nothing. Then we're getting divorced. You'll go back to your life, and I'll go back to mine, and that's how this was always supposed to end. John's expression darkened. You think this means nothing? I think it means exactly what we agreed it would mean. A transaction. A performance. You needed to prove something to your father and your ex. I needed money. We both got what we needed. Is that really what you think? His voice had dropped dangerously low. After everything, after 4 months of this, of us, you think this is still just business? Whitney's hands were shaking. She clasped them together. What else would it be? Are you serious right now? Yes. John, I'm exhausted, my mother is dying, I just sold my company, and I can't, her voice broke. I can't do this with you right now. Do what? Have an honest conversation? Have a conversation where you tell me things you don't mean because you feel sorry for me. You think I feel sorry for you? John moved closer, and Whitney could see the storm in his eyes. You think that's what this is? Isn't it? Poor Whitney. Her mother is sick. Her business failed. Let me throw some money at the problem, make myself feel better about using her for my own purposes. I'm in love with you. The words detonated in the small space like a bomb. Whitney's breath stopped. John ran a hand through his hair, laughing bitterly. God. I didn't want to tell you like this. I had it planned. After the wedding, I was going to ask if we could make it real, if we could try for something actual. But you keep pushing me away, and I can't keep pretending I don't love you. Don't. Whitney's voice was barely a whisper. Don't what? Don't love you? Too late. I've loved you since Magnolia Plantation in August. Maybe before that. Maybe since the first day you walked into my office and called me on my bullshit. You're just saying that because... Because why, Whitney? Because your mother is sick? Because you're vulnerable? You think I'm that much of a bastard? He moved closer. I'm saying it because it's true. Because I wake up thinking about you and go to sleep thinking about you, and every moment in between, you're there. Because when you laugh, it's the best sound I've ever heard. Because you make me want to be better than I am. Tears were streaming down Whitney's face now. Stop. Because when I imagine my future, you're in it. Not for 6 months. Not for a year. Forever. That's what I want. You. Forever. You can't want that. Why not? Because I'm a mess. My mother is dying, I just lost my business, I have nothing to offer you. You have everything. John cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs wiping away her tears. You're everything, Whitney. Don't you see that? She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him so badly. But the fear was too big. The voice in her head that said this is too good to be true was too loud. What about Victoria? She whispered. She said you'd go back to her. She said I was just a rebound. Victoria is my past. A past I should have let go of years ago. You're my future. If you want to be. His eyes searched hers. Do you want to be? Whitney's heart was hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. I'm scared, she admitted. I'm so scared, John. Everything in my life is falling apart, and if I let myself believe in this, in us, and it doesn't work out. It will work out. You can't promise that. No, he agreed. I can't promise it will be easy. I can't promise we won't fight or struggle or have hard days. But I can promise that I will show up. Every day. Through everything. I will show up for you the way you've shown up for your mother, the way you show up for everyone you love. I don't know how to do this, Whitney said. I don't know how to let someone in like this. Then let me teach you. John's smile was soft, vulnerable. Let me show you what it looks like when someone stays. When someone chooses you, every day, no matter what. Whitney closed her eyes. Felt his hands on her face, steady and warm. Felt the truth of his words settling into her bones. She thought of her mother, fighting for every day. Of the strength it took to keep going when everything was falling apart. Of how her ma had always told her, real love is worth the risk, baby. Always worth the risk, Whitney opened her eyes. I love you, she said. I've loved you for months, and it's been killing me because I thought. She didn't get to finish. John kissed her. Not the careful, staged kisses they'd shared at events. Not the brief, sweet kiss at the wedding in June. This kiss was real. Deep and desperate and full of months of restrained feeling finally unleashed. His hands in her hair, her hands fisting in his sweater, both of them trying to get closer, to somehow convey in this kiss everything they'd been too scared to say. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, John rested his forehead against hers. The wedding, he said. October 20th. Let's make it real. Whitney's heart stuttered. What? Marry me. For real. Not for show, not for 6 months. Marry me because you love me and I love you, and neither of us wants to waste another second pretending this is fake. That's crazy. Probably. Do you care? Whitney laughed, and it felt like the first real breath she'd taken in days. No. I don't care. Is that a yes? She pulled back to look at him. At this man who'd somehow become her everything. Who looked at her like she hung the moon. Who was asking her to take the biggest risk of her life. On one condition, Whitney said. Anything. You let me pay for my mother's clinical trial. With my own money. From selling my business. I need to do this myself, John. I need to know I can take care of her. Okay. He said it without hesitation. But after that, let me help. Let me be your partner in this. In everything. I don't know how to let someone help. Then we'll learn together. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. We'll figure it out together. Deal? Whitney thought about the contract they'd signed 5 months ago. All those rules about not falling in love, about keeping things professional, about walking away clean. They'd broken every single one. Thank God. Deal, she whispered. And when John kissed her again, Whitney finally let herself believe. In him. In them. In the possibility that even when everything else was falling apart, love could be the thing that held you together. September 28, 2024. Diane started the clinical trial at Johns Hopkins. Whitney and John drove her to Baltimore together, John's hand in Whitney's the entire 4-hour drive. Diane knew. Of course she knew. Mothers always knew. So it's real now? She asked Whitney when they had a moment alone. It was always real, Ma, Whitney said softly. I was just too scared to admit it. Diane smiled, the same beautiful smile that had comforted Whitney through every hurt, every fear, every triumph of her 34 years. Good. Because that man loves you something fierce, baby. And you deserve that. You deserve someone who shows up. Like you showed up for me. My whole life. That's what love does. It shows up. Diane squeezed her daughter's hand. Now go. Go plan your real wedding. I want it to be beautiful. I want to be there to see it. You will be. I promise. And Whitney meant it. Whatever time they had left, a year, 5 years, God willing more, Whitney was going to make every moment count. Starting with marrying the man she loved. For real this time. October 1st, 2024. John and Whitney sat in John's lawyer's office, signing a very different contract. A prenuptial agreement. But one John insisted protect Whitney, not him. If this doesn't work out, which it will, but if it doesn't, you get half of everything, John said firmly. The house, the business holdings, all of it. John, that's insane. I don't want your money. I know you don't. That's exactly why I'm doing this. He looked at his lawyer. Make sure she's protected. Make sure if I somehow screw this up, she's taken care of. You're not going to screw this up, Whitney said. Damn right I'm not. But just in case. He took her hand. I want you to feel safe. Always. In every way. Whitney looked at this man, this brilliant, stubborn, generous man who somehow loved her, and felt her heart expand. Okay, she said. But I have one addition to the contract. What's that? When we have kids, she watched his eyes widen. They're going to learn about both of our cultures. Your family traditions and mine. Everything. I want them to know where they come from. All of it. John's smile could have lit up the entire city. Kids. You want kids with me? Well, yeah. Eventually. If you... He kissed her. Right there in the lawyer's office, a kiss that made the attorney clear his throat awkwardly. I'll add a family planning clause, the lawyer said dryly. Anything else? John looked at Whitney, his eyes full of love and promise and forever. No, he said. That's everything. She's everything. And for the first time in her life, Whitney let herself believe she was enough. Not because of what she did or what she provided or how well she performed. Just because of who she was. And who she was loved. Completely. Unconditionally. Real. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more emotional and heart-touching stories that speak to the soul, and share your thoughts in the comments to tell us which story you want to hear next. Now let us continue. October 20th, 2024. The day Whitney Johnson became Whitney Edwards. For real this time. The Charleston Harbor Resort was transformed. What was supposed to be a small, staged ceremony for appearances had become something else entirely, something intimate and genuine and absolutely perfect. White flowers everywhere. Roses and gardenias and jasmine, their scent mingling with the salt air from the harbor. Sunset golden light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. 50 guests instead of 200, only the people who truly mattered. Whitney stood in the bridal suite, staring at her reflection. The dress was new. Not the one John had originally commissioned for their fake wedding. That one had been beautiful but safe, chosen to photograph well and impress his father's friends. This one was hers. Ivory silk that draped like water, delicate lace at the shoulders, a subtle train that whispered against the floor. Simple. Elegant. Real. Rachel stood behind her, adjusting the veil. You ready for this? I've been ready since September, Whitney said softly. Maybe since May, if I'm being honest. Your ma looks good today. Whitney's eyes filled. Diane had rallied this past week, the clinical trial was working, her oncologist cautiously optimistic. She was downstairs right now in a chair of honor, wearing purple because she'd always said purple was the color of royalty, and her baby was marrying a king. A knock at the door. Marcus Edwards poked his head in. "May I have a moment with my soon-to-be daughter-in-law?" Rachel squeezed Whitney's hand and slipped out. Marcus entered, looking distinguished in his tuxedo, his steel-gray eyes, so like his son's, softer than Whitney had ever seen them. "You look beautiful, Whitney." "Thank you." He was quiet for a moment, studying her. "I owe you an apology." Whitney blinked. "Sir? I thought you were like Victoria. Another social climber who saw my son as a trophy. A means to wealth and status." Marcus's expression held regret. "I was wrong. You're nothing like her. You love my son for exactly who he is, not what he can provide." "I do love him. More than I thought I could love anyone." "I know. I can see it. Everyone can see it." He reached into his jacket, pulled out a small velvet box. This was John's grandmother's. She was a remarkable woman, strong, independent, fierce. She would have loved you. I'd be honored if you'd wear it today. Inside the box was a bracelet. Vintage pearls interspersed with small diamonds, elegant and timeless. "Marcus, I can't." "You can. You're family now. Not because of a contract or an arrangement. Because you make my son happier than I've seen him in years. Because you challenge him, support him, love him." Marcus's voice roughened. "Because you're exactly the partner he needs. Welcome to the family, Whitney. Truly." He fastened the bracelet around her wrist, kissed her forehead, and left before Whitney could see the tears in his eyes. Rachel came back in, took one look at Whitney's face, and handed her a tissue. "Happy tears only today," she said firmly. "You cry off that mascara, and I'm redoing it. Deal." Whitney dabbed carefully at her eyes. "Is he down there, John? Pacing like a caged animal. Pretty sure he's going to wear a hole in that expensive carpet." Rachel grinned. "He's nervous. It's adorable. He shouldn't be nervous. He already knows I'm saying yes. Doesn't matter. Man's about to marry the love of his life. He's allowed to be nervous. The love of his life." Whitney still couldn't quite believe it was real. Music started downstairs. Soft piano, a melody she recognized, the song that had been playing at Waterfront Park the day John had taught her about his childhood. He'd remembered. Of course he'd remembered. "That's our cue," Rachel said. "Ready to go get married for real?" Whitney looked at herself one more time. At the dress, the veil, the borrowed bracelet. At the woman in the mirror who'd spent so much of her life afraid to trust, afraid to believe, afraid to let someone in. She wasn't afraid anymore. "Let's go," she said. The ceremony was on the resort's terrace overlooking Charleston Harbor. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold and violet. The Ashley and Cooper rivers merged in the distance, two becoming one. Perfect symbolism, Whitney thought. But then she saw John, and every thought evaporated. He stood at the altar in a midnight blue tuxedo, his dark hair catching the golden light, his gray eyes locked on her with such love, such certainty, such absolute devotion that Whitney's breath caught. This was real. This was happening. This was forever. She walked down the aisle on Rachel's arm, her best friend giving her away, because that felt right. Her mother watched from the front row, tears streaming down her beautiful face. Marcus stood beside John as best man, pride evident in his expression. When Whitney reached the altar, John took her hands. His were shaking slightly. "Hi," he whispered. "Hi yourself. You're so beautiful I can't breathe. You're not so bad yourself, Edwards. Soon to be your name too. I know. I can't wait." The officiant cleared his throat. "Shall we begin?" But John was still staring at Whitney like she'd hung the moon. "John," the officiant prompted gently. "Right. Yes. Sorry." John squeezed Whitney's hands. "I'm just taking a moment." Soft laughter rippled through the guests. The ceremony began. Traditional words about love and commitment and partnership. But when it came time for the vows, John and Whitney had written their own. John went first. "Whitney," he began, and his voice was rough with emotion. "5 months ago, I asked you to marry me for all the wrong reasons. I was trying to prove something. Trying to win some imaginary competition with my past. I thought if I could just show everyone I'd moved on, I could actually move on." He paused, his thumbs tracing circles on her palms. "But then you walked into my life, and everything changed. You called me on my nonsense. You made me laugh. You made me want to be better. And somewhere between the fake engagement photos and the staged dinner dates, I fell completely, irrevocably in love with you." Whitney's vision blurred with tears. "You've taught me what it means to show up," John continued. "To be there, every day, through the hard stuff and the beautiful stuff. You've shown me that real love isn't a transaction or a performance. It's choosing each other, over and over, especially when things get difficult. He released one of her hands to brush away a tear sliding down her cheek. So today, I'm choosing you. Not because of a contract. Not to prove anything to anyone. But because you're my home, Whitney. You're my future. You're everything I didn't know I needed and everything I never want to live without. I promise to show up for you, every single day, for the rest of our lives. I promise to love you through everything, the joyful moments and the devastating ones. I promise to be your partner, your best friend, your safe place to land. His voice broke slightly. I promise to love your mother like my own, to honor your dreams even when they're different from mine, to celebrate your strength and support you when you're struggling. I promise to build a life with you that's real and messy and absolutely ours. That's my vow to you, Whitney Johnson. Today and always. There wasn't a dry eye on the terrace. Whitney took a shaky breath. Her turn. John, when I signed that contract 5 months ago, I thought I knew exactly what I was getting into. A business arrangement. A temporary solution to my problems. 6 months of pretending, and then I'd walk away with enough money to save everything that mattered. She smiled through her tears. I was so wrong. Because what I didn't know, what I couldn't know, was that I was about to meet someone who would become everything that mattered. Someone who would see me, really see me, and love what he found. Her voice trembled. You've been there through the hardest moments of my life these past months. My ma's diagnosis, losing my business, all the fear and uncertainty. And you never made me feel weak for needing help. You never made me feel like a burden. You just showed up. Every single time. No questions, no expectations. You just loved me. John's eyes were wet now too. So today, I'm making you a promise. I promise to let you in, even when I'm scared. I promise to lean on you when I need to, and to be your strength when you need that. I promise to love you not just in the easy moments, but in the hard ones, the ones that test us and challenge us and force us to grow. Whitney squeezed his hands. I promise to honor your past while building our future. I promise to celebrate every success and stand beside you through every struggle. I promise to make you laugh, to call you on your nonsense, and to never let you forget how extraordinary you are. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. You asked me once if I could make people believe I was falling for you. The truth is, I didn't have to act. I've been falling for you since day one. And I'm going to keep falling for you, every day, for the rest of our lives. That's my vow to you, John Edwards. Today and forever. The officiant had to take a moment to compose himself. Well, he said, his voice thick. I think we can all agree that these two are very much in love. John, do you take Whitney to be your lawfully wedded wife? I absolutely do. And Whitney, do you take John to be your lawfully wedded husband? I do. More than anything. Then by the power vested in me by the state of South Carolina, I now pronounce you husband and wife. John, you may. But John was already kissing her. A kiss that was tender and passionate and full of promise. A kiss that said finally and forever and you're mine and I'm yours. When they finally broke apart, the terrace erupted in applause and cheers. Ladies and gentlemen, the officiant announced, laughing, Mr. and Mrs. Edwards. Whitney looked up at her husband, her actual husband, and grinned. We did it, she said. We're really married. Best decision I ever made, John said. Both times. And hand in hand, they walked back down the aisle as the sun set over Charleston Harbor, beginning there forever. The reception was everything a wedding should be. Laughter and music and dancing and joy. Marcus gave a toast that had everyone alternately laughing and crying. To my son, who I always knew was brilliant in business, but who I'm discovering is even smarter in love. And to Whitney, who saw past the portfolio and the pedigree to find the man beneath. Welcome to the family. We're better because you're in it. Rachel's toast was shorter but no less heartfelt. To my best friend, who deserves every happiness. And to John, who better treat her right or answer to me. Congratulations, you two. You're disgustingly perfect together. But the moment that broke Whitney completely was when Diane stood, frail but strong, beautiful in her purple dress, and raised her glass. To my baby girl, she said, her voice carrying across the room. You've been my strength, my joy, my reason for everything since the day you were born. Watching you find a love like this, a real, deep, forever love, is the greatest gift you could have given me. John, you take care of my daughter. And Whitney, baby, you let him. Let him love you. Let him be there for you. That's what marriage is. That's what love is. She smiled, radiant despite everything. To love, to showing up, to fighting for what matters. To my daughter and her husband. May you have 50 years of happiness together. To 50 years, everyone echoed. Whitney crossed the room and wrapped her arms around her mother, both of them crying, both of them holding tight. I love you, Ma, Whitney whispered. I love you too, baby. Now go dance with your husband. I want to see you happy. And Whitney did. John pulled her onto the dance floor as the band played at last, and they swayed together under the stars. Your mom looks good, John murmured against her hair. The trial is working. Dr. Patel thinks she might have years, not months. Good. She needs to be around to spoil our kids. Whitney pulled back to look at him. Our kids. Eventually. When you're ready. No pressure. His smile was soft. But yeah. I want everything with you, Whitney. Kids, a house, a dog, Sunday dinners with your mom and mine, all of it. The whole messy, beautiful life. That sounds perfect. Yeah? Yeah. They danced in silence for a moment, just holding each other. Hey, John said suddenly. I have something for you. A wedding present. John, you've already given me so much. This is different. Come with me. He led her off the dance floor, through the resort, out to the parking lot where a car was waiting. Inside was a folder. Whitney opened it, confused. Then her breath stopped. That's Magnolia Events. It's yours again, John said. I bought it back from the company you sold it to. It took some negotiating, they weren't thrilled about selling, but I convinced them. All your client contracts, your brand, everything. It's yours. No strings attached. John, I can't. Yes, you can. It's not a loan or charity. It's a wedding present. Your business, your dream, returned to you. Because you shouldn't have had to give that up. And because I want you to have everything you want, Whitney. Everything. Whitney stared at the documents, then at her husband. This is too much. It's nowhere near enough. But it's a start. He cupped her face. Build your empire, Mrs. Edwards. I'll be right there supporting you. Partner? Whitney asked, echoing their conversation from weeks ago. Partners, John confirmed. In everything. Whitney kissed him, pouring every ounce of gratitude and love and joy into it. When they returned to the reception, Victoria Pemberton was standing near the bar. Whitney's steps faltered. John had mentioned Victoria RSVP'd no. What was she doing here? Victoria saw them and crossed over, her expression unreadable. Congratulations, she said. Both of you. Thank you, Whitney said carefully. I owe you an apology, Whitney. Several, actually. Victoria's smile was rueful, genuine. I spent 2 years convinced John still loved me. Convinced he'd come back if I just waited long enough, tried hard enough. I refused to see that what we had was over. That it had been over for a long time. She looked at John. But watching you two today, seeing the way you look at her, the way you love her, I finally understand. You never looked at me like that, John. Not once in 3 years. And that's not a criticism. It just is. We weren't right for each other. We never were. Victoria turned back to Whitney. You were right at your engagement party. Some things are worth keeping private until they're absolutely real. What you two have, that's real. I was too blind to see it before. I'm sorry for the things I said, for trying to sabotage what you were building. You're good for him. Better than I ever was. Victoria, John started. It's okay. Really. Victoria's smile was sad but accepting. I'm leaving Charleston. Taking a position in Atlanta. Fresh start. Time to find my own real thing instead of chasing a ghost. She extended her hand to Whitney. Be happy. Both of you. You deserve it. Whitney shook her hand. Thank you. And Victoria? I hope you find it. Your real thing. Everyone deserves that. After Victoria left, John pulled Whitney close. That was gracious of you, he said. She wasn't wrong about everything. What we have is real. The realest thing I've ever known. Whitney smiled up at him. And I'm done wasting time being afraid of it. Good. Because I plan to spend the next 50 years showing you just how real it is. They rejoined the party, dancing and laughing until midnight, surrounded by everyone they loved. 1 year later. October 20th, 2025. Their first anniversary. Whitney stood on the terrace of their new house, not John's penthouse, but a home they'd chosen together in the historic district. A beautiful old mansion with a garden and enough room for the family they were planning. Through the window, she could see John in the kitchen with Diane, the two of them cooking Sunday dinner together. Her mother was in remission, the clinical trial had worked beyond anyone's expectations. She was strong again, vibrant again, already talking about being around to meet her grandchildren. Magnolia Events was thriving. Whitney had hired 3 new planners, expanded into wedding coordination, and just landed a contract with the city for their annual festival. She loved her work, but she also loved coming home to John every night. They'd found their balance. Partnership in the truest sense. Hey, Mrs. Edwards. John appeared behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. What are you thinking about? How different life is from a year ago. How much has changed? Good different? The best different. Whitney turned in his arms. You know what today is? Our anniversary. 1 year of being married for real. Also 1 year and 5 months since we first met. May 18, 2024. You sat across that mahogany desk and offered me $250,000 to fake marry you. John groaned. Don't remind me. I was an idiot. You were desperate. We both were. Whitney smiled. But I'd do it all again. Every moment. Even the hard ones. Because they led us here. To forever? To forever, Whitney confirmed. John kissed her softly, sweetly, perfectly. I love you, he said. Today and always. I love you too. More than I thought I could love anyone. Hey, you too. Diane called from inside. Dinner's ready. Stop making out on the terrace and come eat. They laughed, joined hands, and walked inside together. Their home. Their family. Their real, messy, absolutely perfect life. It had started as a fake wedding. A contract. A performance. But somewhere between the first lie and the final truth, Whitney Johnson and John Edwards had found something extraordinary. They'd found each other. And that, as it turned out, was the realest thing of all. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more emotional and heart-touching stories that speak to the soul, and share your thoughts in the comments to tell us which story you want to hear next.